Okay, another day. Celine and John are getting the one truck we're going to use today ready. Putting on a few more supers. Loading it with more skateboards and such. That's kind of cool this morning, relatively cool compared to what we have had. It's really dry right here at the shop. 4 weeks ago, we were complaining about too much rain. Today we're complaining we need some rain. So I know the sourwood flow can be affected by the moisture in the ground. Of course, anything would. I've had decent years in a dry year, but the very best years always come when there's been ample rain right ahead of the bloom. So we're watering the garden down there because it's kind of dry. Go down and look at that. I never would have guessed when I was a young boy, always helping my grandmother and my mom with their perennial gardens, that I would actually like doing it myself later. Back then I hated the work, didn't care about the flowers much at all. But these days I like doing it. Those hostas look great. Ferns. This is a nice little spot to sit and have lunch. Well, that's a fine looking box right there. I actually recognize that box as part of a group I put together about 25 years ago. You can see that I repaired it once, replaced the frame rest area strip there. That box was dipped in copper naphthenate and linseed oil, and although it looks terrible, it still looks like it's functioning. So we're in a yard down by Turnerville, Georgia, just south of our shop. Lower elevation, a little south. And we are lifting up the spring wildflower, putting on supers for sourwood with an escape board in between. This yard has already had one box of wildflower taken off. It was mostly full, and now what we got is an empty box that was put on a month ago, and they kind of filled it up halfway, and then another pretty full box. So they've done good. We haven't had exactly the best spring wildflower flow this year, but this yard did okay. And this yard has not been requeened. It's one of the very few yards we have remaining that has not been requeened this year. So what you see here is 2 mediums on some of them and 1 medium on others. The very best ones get 2 and the mediocre ones get 1. Of course, we know that we'll be back here in 4 or 5 days to pull these deep wildflower supers off, and we'll get a good look at that medium that's underneath the escape board. And if we decide at that time that they need another one, we will have a bunch of medium supers with us. These boxes that they've been working on have a little bit of dark honey, and they're just barely switching over to lighter honey. I think the dark honey is mimosa. I saw some beautiful mimosas coming into this yard. I'm sure that's what they've been working. Hopefully our timing is just right. It's really tricky trying to keep the dark sumac and mimosa out of the sourwood. Of course, those honeys are great honeys, but we don't want it in our sourwood because pure sourwood is very desirable and brings a premium price. Now, I should add that there's really no such thing as pure. You might get an extremely high percentage, but you can't tell the bees where to go, and I think there's always a little something else in there, and sourwood is surely no exception to that rule. If you can get above 90% sourwood, you're doing pretty good in my view. And some years we do, and some years we don't. Last year was a very poor sourwood year, and although we're calling it sourwood, it's not the greatest sourwood I've ever made. I would, kind of feel a little iffy on the fence about selling it, but we didn't make much of it, and people really like the sourwood. Even the stuff that's contaminated a bit with other honey is still really good honey, so we're selling it labeled as sourwood. The law states if you have 51% or more of a given variety that it's okay or legal to call it that. I really prefer it to be 80 or 90% or more before I start calling something a particular variety. It's kind of a race and a march north for us. The idea that some of our yards are south of the shop and lower elevations are are earlier than the ones that are north and higher elevations of the shop really works for us, because we got 35 yards currently, and there's no way we can make this transition in just a few days. It takes a couple weeks. And the yards that are north of the shop, up around Dillard, Georgia, and Ottawa, North Carolina, really still have a good maybe 10 days or 2 weeks before they switch over from wildflower to sourwood. And that works for us. I'm glad we have that going on with our management strategy. So we'll be going on to the next yard, about 3 or 4 miles down the road, see if they're ready too. I don't know why they'd be any different than this yard. Again, this yard is just barely starting to switch over from the darker mimosa and sumac to sourwood, and we may still get a little bit of that stuff in our sourwood, but we can't come back later. We've got to make this switch with the supers today, right now. One last check for leaky spots before we leave. Seems like no matter how careful you are, there's always a spot here or there that bees can get in and rob the supers up above the escapes. We'll stick a piece of plastic or a stick or something in those cracks. Of course, when there's a nectar flow, that robbing is minimal. When the nectar flow stops, that's when you really got to worry about it. This yard has quite a few empty spots simply because we sold some bees out of here this spring and haven't completely repopulated it yet. And honestly, I'm not that worried about it. I'm trying to downsize a little, kind of liking the idea of some of my yards being smaller. So there's the culprit for the dark honey that's coming in right now. Mimosa honey is almost as dark as tulip poplar, not quite, but rather than having a red hue like poplar does, it has an orange hue. It's pretty distinctive. It's good tasting honey. I just don't want it mixing with my sourwood. This fella across the road has some grapes growing, but he's pretty conscientious. I have had issues around grapes before, and it's not that the bees are working the grapes, it's that they can be working the Dutch white clover that is in the aisles, and then when they spray fungicides and stuff on the grapes, it affects the bees working the clover underneath. With this guy, I've met him, I've talked to him. He's not a problem. I had to move away from a vineyard last year because of the Dutch white clover. Talked to the grower, told him what was going on, that it was affecting the bees, and he just shrugged, said, I gotta do what I gotta do. And I get that. If I was a great grower, I'd probably do what I had to do too. Anyway, this is a beautiful mimosa. They're all over the place. It's waning. If you look at this closely, camera probably won't pick up the subtleties, but the color in the blooms is starting to wane a little bit. It's kind of going from that deep lavender, whatever, I guess you'd call it purple color. It's kind of turning pink and kind of fading away. So these things are about done just as the sourwood is coming on, so it should work good. So we've been doing some alcohol washes just to see where we stand. Not seeing any numbers that are alarming. Not ideal, but not alarming. A number of 3s in an alcohol wash, 300 bees, 3 mites, some 4s, some 5s. It's kind of consistent. I mean, 3, 4, 5, that's all in the same neighborhood. I don't like to see any. And this yard is going to be treated with Apigard in about 1 month from today, so I think a 3, 4, and 5 we'll get by. I don't think we'll be off the charts. Although those numbers will be higher in 1 month, I don't think we'll be off the charts. I think we're doing okay. It's kind of hard to stop and treat for mites right now when the sourwood supers are going on, so we'll just hang in there and treat. As soon as these sourwood supers come off, we will treat. We're at this small bee yard on my neighbor's property, Jack Johnston. Some of you know who that is. And we are requeening the whole yard. It's almost to the end of requeening for us. We've done almost every yard. And yeah, it's a lot of work and it's a pain, but I think it's worth it. And it always gives you pause to kill a queen that's doing a wonderful job. But for me, it's not just about what she's doing now in the moment. It's about what she's going to be doing going into winter and next spring. The very best queens next spring will be the ones that we are replacing right now. And before this season is over, I'm pretty confident we're going to get every single queen changed out. We're very close to it now. We're getting nectar shake today. This is Lake Mite, Georgia. It is the 20th of June, and today is the first day that we're seeing sourwood nectar in this area, so it has started. The weather looks good for the next 7 to 10 days. They're forecasting lots of sunshine, no extreme heat. It's in the mid-80s, that's a good temperature for nectar flow. I don't like to see the 90s because that can kind of burn it up quickly. It has been a few weeks since the rain, but there's still a little moisture in the dirt, so I think we're going to be okay. I made reasonable crops in a year when, there wasn't standing water. My very best sourwood years were when it rained a lot and then the bloom came on, but that's not going to occur this year. So we're putting the last box of spring honey above an escape, and they've done well. There's honey in most of these boxes. Of course, I just got through saying that, and that one looked empty when he picked it up, but that one looks pretty good. These bees are fair. The queens are doing a good job, but I want to requeen them before next winter. And in a nectar flow is the very best time to requeen. That's when you will get your best acceptance. The bees become preoccupied with the flow, and they'll pretty much accept about anything you give them. And again, it's hard to kill a queen that's got a pattern like that one that Kevin's got in his hand, but I just want to get it done so we'll have the very best colonies next spring. Nice little yard of bees. This is one of our very smallest yards of bees. We have two yards that are this small. The rest are anywhere from 32 to 48. Something else of interest that I'll mention is we've been doing alcohol washes everywhere we go. Every yard will do 5, 6, 7 colonies. I did 4 or 5 in this yard and stopped because I see no need for any more. This particular yard was really good. We got mostly zeros, which I did not expect. And we got a couple ones, one Mite and a 300B alcohol wash. That's really good this time of year. So I feel like I don't need to wash anymore. These will get an ApiGuard treatment when the sourwood supers come off about 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now. So I feel real comfortable with our mite counts. Now, something else of interest is that if you've watched some of my past videos, you knew that I took 3 yards of bees down to South Georgia, 3 yards of 72 each, down to Hayhira, Georgia for the winter. And those 3 yards have high numbers. They did go broodless last December before we took them, but they started up very early down there. And of course, they were exposed to other bees in that neighborhood down there. And those bees have what I would consider very high numbers. They run anywhere from 4, 5 to 10. I even had one that was in the 20s. And it's down south of the shop, down in Hollywood, Georgia. And those will get treated immediately when the supers come off. And that's earlier down there, so those supers are going to be off in 2 weeks, and they will get treated immediately with ApiGuard. And when I see numbers up in the 20s, I get nervous about that. You can't wait with something like that. If they weren't making sourwood honey right now, they'd be getting treated right now today. So, but I think I'll be okay if I just wait 2 more weeks. Oh, she says, do I want to taste honey? Okay. What you got?
It's pretty light.
Yeah, get all those bees off there. Just pound them off. So you can see what's happening. Okay, let's analyze this comb. Here's what's going on. This kind of dirty dishwater looking honey, that's sumac. But you can see down here it's changing to something much lighter. So they're just now changing to sourwood. And you splashed a bunch of nectar a minute ago, so that would be the fresh sourwood that's just coming in today. I believe that the sourwood flow in this location is starting today. I think they just barely started. They're going to switch off of the sumac and the mimosa. I don't see any mimosa in that comb. If there was some mimosa in here, you'd see some dark splotches in there, and there's none of that. I say that's sumac just now today switching to sourwood. So do I want to taste it? Yeah, I want to taste it. And now here's something interesting about sourwood. It looks clear on a hive tool when it's fresh like that. If you see any color at all, and I mean even a little bit, then it's not pure sourwood. Here, you hold the camera. I want to taste that. Yeah, that's hard to beat. It's really hard to beat. You want to taste this, John?
And there's more on the next frame over if you guys want to.
That's good, honey.
That's real good.
That's good.
Yeah.
So let's just hope we make a ton of it. Thank you. So what we're doing with these queens is we're putting masking tape over the candy. Just cheap masking tape. Make sure it's the cheap stuff. If you use the expensive blue stuff, they don't chew through it very good. And we just take a small nail, like a 2-penny nail or a finish nail or something, and poke a small, let's get in the sunlight so it gets good. There you go. So poke a small hole in it with a finish nail or a 2-penny nail, and they will chew through the masking tape to get to the candy, and that will buy you an extra day. At least, it may be 2 days. I haven't really measured that. And we just go right in the middle and put them right between the top bars right there. And then we'll put the queen excluder over that. And then this colony is a pretty good colony, so he'll put 2 medium supers on it and an escape, and then the honey above it. And when we come back in about 5 days to harvest the honey supers, we'll have a good look at what this colony's been doing. And if they're doing really well, we'll give them a 3rd super. And if they haven't really done all that great with the 2 they have, we'll just leave them that way. So, good colony. Once again, killing a good queen doing a good job is questionable by many, but it's our way of doing things, and I like it, so that's what we go for. Thanks. Okay, this is the little queen bank box we carry our queens around. Nothing fancy, just a JZBZ box, JZBZ cages. And I got the queen killed in mine. I'll put one in that one too. Kevin's struggling with this one. You having a hard time? I'm going to put this on video. Kevin can't find his queen.
These 2 went really well. This one?
Yeah. Yeah, every once in a while, one just is elusive.
I'm almost ready to look in that box.
Well, she might have slipped through the excluder. Do you have any brood up there?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, check for brood in that second box. This is an entirely different subject, but we are getting aggravated with some of the excluders that are coming our way. And it's not just one manufacturer. Some of them are too big, some of them are too small, some have bent wires, and they're coming straight from the factory that way. Of course, 90% of the excluders, I think, are coming from China. Some are coming from Taiwan and other places, but I don't know of any being made in this country. Not that that would make a huge difference. We're quite capable of screwing it up here too, but I'm seeing a lot of excluders that are off specs these days. We had a couple complaints from customers where the queens were slipping through on excluders they purchased from us. So I think quality control with queen excluders at the point of manufacture needs to be checked on, just my opinion. Of course, we won't get 100% take, but we've been having pretty good luck. We've been in the 90s percentile for most spots we've been requeening. Doing real well this year on requeening. So this is our cell builder yard. We've just gone through it also. It is 100% requeened, and they've done pretty good. These colonies actually made some honey. These have got 3 deeps on them. I'm surprised, honestly. I thought one of these deeps was going to be empty, but they went ahead and put honey in it. So we're going to be doing our last round of grafting next week. So some of these colonies, let's see, like this one, that didn't get any medium supers, and we did not leave the queen in such a way that they can get her out of there. We put a cap on the cage, so next Tuesday when we're grafting, today's Thursday, next Tuesday when we're grafting, that queen will still be in the cage, easy to find when we set up those cell builders. We got 4 set up in here like that. That'll be our last round of grafting, and kind of glad actually. We love making our own queen cells. We like the process, we like the results, but boy, it sure gets in the way sometimes. It just takes a lot of work producing your own queen cells and your own queens. John's on the very last one. We found every queen, so we've done good. And once again, they have really good patterns. And we did some mite washes here too, and we found everything from 0s to 4s in this yard. So all in all, our mite count is looking really good for this time of year. The only 3 groups of bees that are not low numbers is those bees that came back from Hayhiver, Georgia back in March. And we had some pretty stout numbers on those bees, everywhere from, gosh, 4s to a couple in the 20s, which is not good in my view. And those bees will be getting treated just in 2 weeks. They're down south of the shop. That Sourwood flow will be over before this area. This one's just starting today. I'm just real close to Jack's yard, Jack's property that's next to me, or these bees and his bees are probably only maybe the way the bee flies, 1/4 to a 1/2 mile apart. And they're both small yards, so I'm comfortable with them being so close. This is a 24 colony yard also. It's got a couple empty spots, so it's not even 24. And we actually mate nukes here sometimes. We got a small little mating yard right next to this yard, which we use occasionally. Haven't used it this year, but we'll use it next year, I'm sure. John, you having trouble finding that queen?
Yeah, she's hiding out there.
She's hiding, yeah. We've had a few that took us a little time to find, but we found them all. Anyway, all in all, I'm pleased with this yard too. Good brood patterns, healthy bees, brand new queens. They'll be in great shape for winter.
I like wildflower. I'd like to try the wildflower.
Okay,
And then,
mountain wildflower.
yes, ma'am.